Hello, everybody. Welcome to Fights Clean Sex Dirty TV.
And Relationship Fun and Games.
It's Gabby and Raj here, and we're so excited to have you on the show today. We're here with our special guest, Sacha Lalla, and we're going to be talking about how to keep the sex dirty before. An awesome topic.
Yeah, you almost said fights clean. That was last week. So if your issue is more about fighting, then go ahead and make sure you're checking out last week's episode. But today we're here and we're going to talk about, again, the category before, because as you know, we not only alternate each week the content between how to keep the fights clean and the sex dirty, we go through each of the four categories of when to apply these tips. So before, as it starts, during, and after. So today we have, as Raj said, how to keep the sex dirty before with Sacha Lalla, and what to do well before. I mean, even before the seduction starts. What do you do so that you can have a playful, peaceful, passionate life with your beloved and in your sexy time?
Now, if you see me today a little bit looking and doing things, our moderator, who usually facilitates the back end of our show, couldn't make it. So if you see
me playing double duty,
playing double duty and trying to make that as seamless as possible. So bear with us.
But do keep in mind that we'll be keeping an eye on your comments. We'll be clicking back and forth from the screen. So feel free to put your questions or just make any comments if you hear something that you think is helpful, because people may come and watch the replay afterwards, and your comments or what you say could actually even encourage them to check it out a little bit more.
So Gabby mentioned that today we're doing Sex Dirty Before, and we just wanted to give you a little visual on how we organize our content here.
Yeah, we're
Gabby,
visual people.
You want to go ahead and do that?
Sure. Well, I said this verbally, but as you said, we're visually. So it's Fights Clean and Sex Dirty, because when we did a survey of couples, like what's really going on and what are you struggling with, it kind of boiled down to those two things. Like, how do we not lose it, really with your fights, how often they're happening, how bad they get, how long they last. And with keeping it passionate, life is full and busy, and we get cranky and hungry, and this week computers crashing. And so how do we maintain a passionate, intimate life during those challenges in life? And as you can see here, so you can always look for on any of our blog posts or any of our content, if you see the heart with the halo, it's about keeping the fights clean. That's where you want to be nice. And if you see the heart with the horns, that's about keeping the sex dirty. That's where you want to be naughty. As I said, save being nasty for your sex life, not for your fights. There's no good place for being nasty in your arguments.
And as you can see here, the little graphics show visually what we're talking about verbally, that you can look at the fights clean before, or the sex dirty before, or as it starts, during, or after. And we organize our content this way so you can apply what we're teaching you in the proper time frame, either to keep the fights clean or the sex dirty.
Yeah, because what you're going to do when you're in the thick of it, in the middle of a fight or in the middle of getting it on, is going to be very different than what you're going to do before. And so, as we said, today is a before, sex dirty before, and we're going to be looking at Initiate Inertia and mini seductions and a bunch of great ideas from Sacha as well.
Awesome. So, honey, you want to introduce Sacha, and I'll turn off the screen sharing here.
Yes, absolutely. So Sacha Lalla is an extraordinary human being. One of my favorite quotes of hers is that authenticity is the currency of the future, and actually it's the currency of the now, because she's just so real. She comes as she is. She's just extraordinary. Both, she does women's empowerment work, but on top of that, she has an amazing marriage, and her husband was going to join us today, but I messed up on the dates. That was my doing, and so he wasn't able to be here, but we're going to have him come back in another season, because Sacha works with the women and empowering men, and he works with the men, specifically men in world, an international speaker, and I just always delight in everything that she has to share. And this is the first time we get to talk about relationship, so I'm excited to have you here today, Sacha. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited. It's actually good that Scott's on here, because then I get to talk about all this stuff by myself.
Well, there was one episode in the last season that I was on a plane, and so I couldn't be on the interview. And I only heard about 15 minutes of it, but this will make me blush a little bit here, but the night after I got home after that interview, Raj and I had the sexiest sexy time we had ever had. And it's just not the technique, it was this energetic thing. And I was like, wow, honey, you know, I should have you do interviews on your own. So who knows? We do love having couples and just seeing how they interact. But yeah, absolutely, it's fun to have you all to ourselves, Sacha.
I'm glad to be here.
Fantastic. So should we jump in with the main topic of today, Gavin?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a few last episode about string mini seductions. So I want to give you just a little brief overview of that here, and but we're really going to talk about today's distinction of initiate inertia. Just spend about 5 minutes or so, and then we're going to hear from Sacha and some of her tips. And Sacha, feel free to jump in if you have anything to add about our tips as well. And then Raj is going to remind you to refresh the screen. It's me reminding you to remind them to refresh the screen.
Takes a team.
And with about 25 minutes left on the call, so that we can open it up to your questions and answers and give you some answers to exactly what's applicable in your own life right now, not just, you know, generally what we want to talk about, but we want to hear from you. Okay?
Right? Yeah.
All right, so today, Mastering Mini Seductions. Do you want to do that one? Just a brief overview of what we talked about then.
Yeah, so Mastering Mini Seductions is, again, falls into our category of keeping the sex dirty before. And this is a really awesome and simple tip. And basically, you want to keep your, what we call the embers glowing, the sexual embers glowing.
Short on-ramps, I call them. You want easy access on-ramps, not like one of those that goes up and winding up.
and so the Mini Seductions allows there to be this easy on-ramp because what a Mini Seduction is it's something simple like, you know, I'll do a little...
I love the like neck kiss. Oh, a little slower, though. A little slower. A little slower. Yeah, yeah.
Or, you know, a little like, playing with the hair, or when you walk by, a little.
We like to say grab. A little ass grab goes a long way. Although he has clarified he prefers the ass caress to the ass grab.
It's what we're looking not to have is the ass goose.
He doesn't want the goose. He doesn't want me startling him, which we used to do. I have to admit, I have to do some coaching.
So all of these things are just little things that you can do to keep some sort of sexual chemistry going with your partner just in the day-to-day. And if you're doing that, then when you go to actually have a more full sexual experience, it's not like this total shock to the person that you're actually touching them or that you're expressing sexual interest.
You know, because people want to feel attractive, and if you're not feeling attractive in the day-to-day, and then all of a sudden, you know, it's Sunday and you have some space and time, you're like, hey, and your partner's like, you know, you've been cranky with me all week. You know, it really is. Earlier, that's why when we start these seasons, we always start with Fights Clean first and then Sex Dirty, because if you're not taking care of the fighting part, then there's no point of trying to address the sex part, because no one's going to be motivated. So if you're nurturing your relationship, you know, we call it, you know, if you tend to your gardener, your weeds are going to grow. Because, oh, I don't know if you can hear that, but there's thunder happening here. Woo.
Even Mother Nature is coming to join the conversation, get things rumbling.
When the thunder comes.
Yeah, we're in an outdoor sort of office environment here, so we'll hear some of the rain noise if it starts pouring on us here, but much welcome rain in Santa Barbara.
Yeah. But as we're saying, it really is about the all day long, the day in and day out, like how you're being with each other is going to make those on-ramps much shorter. So whether it's the Mastering the Mini Seductions or what we're going to talk about right now with Initiate Inertia, which is, you know, just this idea of, you know, you want to get proactive. You want to do something. Because, I'm sorry, honey, was there anything else on Mastering Mini Seductions? And maybe we should pause there and get Sacha's 2 cents on that.
Yeah. Thanks for checking. So one little thing with the
I'm practicing that, by the
way. One small thing with the Mastering Mini Seductions is that just a little tutorial on how to create them. Create your own list, you know, what you'd like your partner to do. Compare lists and see which ones they'd like to do, which ones you'd like to do, and narrow it down to some. Keep it simple. It can be anything from making a cup of tea for your partner to massaging their feet. And then
oh my gosh, I have this spot on my big toe. If he gives me a squeeze, we're watching TV, and he picks up my foot and gives me a squeeze, it's like, get lucky tonight. Yeah, it's all in the toes. What was that? I once heard an expression that the way to a man's heart is through his stomach, and the way to a man's bed. No, way to a man's heart is through his stomach, and the way a woman to bed is her toes. A foot massage will get you everywhere.
So the one last little bit on that is even better ifing. So practice these things and take constructive input from your partner. Hey, you know what? That'd be even better if, like when Gabby was doing the ass grab and it was really an ass goose, and I'd be like, you know, like just, finally.
Wasn't that bad?
It's not. It's just not what I'm expecting. That you just give a little positive, you know, hey, can I show you how to do that a little bit better so that it will really turn me on?
You know, it would be even better if, you know, when you were a kid and you were playing a game, you're like, I know, you know, it would be even better if. In fact, Raj was trying to give me some feedback on something the other day, and he asked me, like, how did I do? I said, well, you know, maybe you could bring that childlike quality of, like, hey, let's play a game. I know.
Yeah.
Let's not do that. Let's do it this way. And then I'm like, okay, let's try it that way.
Should we hear a little bit from
Sasha? Yeah, Sasha, anything on mastering mini seductions for you?
Yeah, no, I'm hearing you guys talk, and it's so interesting. It's things as you're speaking, I'm seeing that Scott and I actually do, but we didn't have a label for it to know that we were actually doing it, and so I can actually see that there's definitely situations and places where we actually are having these little mini seductions, and now that, you know, to bring our awareness to it, we can actually bring more intention and attention to it, so that it's a bit more, you know, right now it's happening just because it's a habit of ours and what we already do, so it's a little bit unconscious, but to bring more conscious awareness to it, I can just see it actually being a bit more charged with a bit more passion and sexual energy. So that's one thing I'm noticing, that I'm like, oh, we do some of those things, it's just kind of unconsciously done. So I do like the idea of the mini seductions, and it's also good to know that, you know, making a cup of tea, I get a cup of tea made for me every morning, and it makes me feel so loved, so taken care of, and I never even notice it as a mini seduction. But the truth is, when I'm feeling safe and nurtured by my man, I'm way more relaxed and feeling like I'm willing to surrender and let loose and, you know, wanting to release. And now I'm going to see tea. I'm going to see tea as a seduction, where before is an act of love, but now I'm going to have all the sexual energy in my cup every morning.
Nice. Hey, you're welcome, Scott. Yeah. It looks like a cup of tea. Well, it's funny because yesterday I was talking to someone, a friend was visiting, and I was saying, you know, women, you know, Osho, one of my dad is a disciple of Osho, and I grew up hearing Osho quotes, and Osho said, men are stupid and women are crazy. And I was talking to a friend about, you know, how kind of he was being a bit short-sighted and how women can be kind of crazy. And I gave an example. I said, you know, you don't take out the trash, you don't do something that you said you were going to do, and we think we can't trust you to have sex with you. Like, we totally collapse them. I kill the baby, because Raj and I, we don't even have kids yet. We're trying to get pregnant now, and whenever he washes the dish, that if it's not quite as clean as I would like it to be, I'll say to him, you're going to kill the baby. I haven't been in the one day we're going to have a baby, and he's not going to clean the bottles right, and the baby's going to get sick, and the baby's going to die. So when they're like, what does taking the trash out have to do with us having sex? A lot.
Yes, everything.
Women need to feel safe and held and secured. I call it, you know, securing the perimeter.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I also I'm gonna have a way more intention on how I have my mini sex, because there's things I do with Scott, but I'm just like, oh, it's because he's my husband. Now I'm like, there's an extra bite in my touch. I can see, because now I'm like, this actually is a seduction, and so there's an energetic field that's created between us when I have sexual energy. Like, you know, I might grab his shoulder because I want to connect, but if I'm grabbing his shoulder, but the feeling in the palm of my hand is, I desire you, I want you, and there's a bit more charge, he's going to, even ever so subtly, feel that ripple throughout his body, and enough of those cut up means for a lot of energy built up by the time the evening comes.
Adam Galad and his wonderful wife Sandy, they were on episode 8 of the first season, last season, and they talked about, they call it 24-hour foreplay.
Nice.
Because it's happening all the time. How you relate to each other is the foreplay that is doing. So it leaves them in a place, they call it emergency sex. And like, the mood strikes one of you, and it's like even this weekend, one day I was really ready for it, and he just wasn't ready, and the next day he was really ready for it, and I was kind of doing something else. And so they call that emergency sex, and if one person's in the mood, it's like, you got to take it, take that while you can. It's on rev short, and you're doing that 24-hour foreplay. It's a lot easier to take advantage of those emergency sex moments.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think of it like, we're both online entrepreneurs, so we work from home, and sometimes, you go to the gym, you release energy, but sometimes I'm like, I actually see it as a necessary action to release tension. So if like sales calls aren't happening or things don't seem to be working, we'll be like, okay, we should just, it's like someone goes to the gym for a quick run. We should just have a quick romp in the sheets and then see if our productivity increases. And even if we're both not in the mood, it's like, okay, we've got 20 minutes before our next call. Let's see what we can make happen, because all that energy is got to spark something. If anything, it'll release whatever's blocking us from producing results for the rest of our day.
Now that's what I'm calling a home office. Like,
totally.
You have a home office there. Nice job.
Yeah, absolutely. You never know, because there's a lot of stuff that's released. Even if we're sick, if we're continuously getting colds or feel like we're coming down on something, the level of endorphins, I'm like, okay, we're kind of biting at each other, or I'm not producing, or I'm feeling I'm coming down. Let's go and like do some animal, connection so that our animals are served, and then go back to our to-do list.
Yeah. Right. Yes. And I'm a big fan of brain science. There's actually a lot of brain science to support this, that not just sex, but sex specifically, but other physical exertion as well, like when someone goes for a run. But, I think we should try that next time, honey. Next time we're in a fight, I call emergency sex.
Emergency sex.
Fight, angry, this is kind of so bad, but angry sex is sometimes like, I'm like, if we're fighting and we can't come to a resolution, I'll be like, maybe you just are like, maybe we're just frustrated, and let's just have some like angry. It's not angry like we're really angry at each other, but it's an outlet for our frustrations or overwhelm. And sometimes it can be quite interesting where it goes with that energy in the space. It can make for a lot of fun. So I'm very much for that.
Raj, you want to pull up that screen so they can, for those visual people like me, they can see what we're talking about?
Okay, so we're going to start talking about our other main topic that we wanted to talk about today.
We kind of have in many ways. So we've been talking about Seductions, and again, the whole show was about that in episode 2 in season 1. That was with Amber Lupton and Nathan Charles. It was great to have them. We just had a baby, so excited for them. But the second distinction that we want to talk about today, when I say distinction, I mean like the tool or the practice or the habit. Raj and I, we call these peace practices. We've been identifying what are our friction factors, what are the things that are causing friction, and then how can we translate those into these peace practices. So one of these peace practices is calling Initiate Inertia, which is, as I mentioned before, if you don't tend to your garden, weeds are going to grow. So the question is, are you going to invest your time and energy and love up front, or are you going to wait and have it demanded of you later on when there's some upset or some crankiness, or the computer crashes, or the bank account is empty sooner than you thought it was going to be? Whatever those life stresses may be, they're going to pop up if you don't invest and get proactive right up front.
I was thinking about this topic, the Initiate Inertia, before the show, and for the guys out there.
What guys?
What?
Are you going to talk about being an engineer?
No.
Oh, sorry.
Just that it's not just for guys, but it's kind of like, when you're on the couch and you don't want to get up, and then you get up and you're like, oh, that's awesome. Now I'm going to go do these other things. It's initiating the inertia of getting yourself up that you're then like, oh, there's a whole new world here. same thing, like if you're trying to do something new that you hadn't done before or want to get out of a habit, that there's a little bit of inertia to get you into doing the new thing, but once you initiate the inertia, then it moves forward easily from that point on. And the same thing applies to your sex life, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So getting proactive, because, you know, Raj was mentioning physics, and I said a moment ago, I think things in motion tend to stay in motion. That's what we're talking about with inertia. Things at rest tend to stay at rest. So we noticed, and I've talked to other couples and asked them, and they're like, yeah, that absolutely happens with us. It may not be you, it's not everyone, but for many couples, and Sacha, tell me if this is too personal, but this is our topic. But for us, you know, we'll get busy, like there'll be house guests, or we'll be traveling, or, you know, there's a deadline with work. We run 2 companies together and work on a 3rd project together. And we'll kind of forget or lose the time or be exhausted and end up not having sex for a little bit. And we kind of forget how great it is. Mm-hmm. And then something will happen, and we have an open, spacious, you know, afternoon or whatever it may be, and we get going again, and it just takes that little bit. And it's like, oh, that's right. This is awesome. Why are we doing this all the time? And we start doing it all the time until something happens and life gets busy again. So things in motion tend to stay in motion. Things at rest tend to stay at rest. So we wanted to apply that here to your sex life and beforehand, and just work on just getting going.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that can be the hardest part, you know, especially if your sex life has been waning a bit. It gets hard to get it moving again, but once you get it moving, then you're in motion, just like Abby was talking about.
Totally, and I'm also thinking, like, especially for, you know, and I'll just speak for myself as a married couple, you know, a lot of the you know, this is inertia, and we've been together for a long time before we got married, so it's also the idea of like keeping it fresh and new and exciting as well. You know, I definitely know the world of inertia. After we got married, I think it took us 2 to 3 weeks to actually consummate the marriage, because we were just so freaking exhausted and busy with stuff. And so I totally get the world of what it must be like to be stuck in the inertia as a married couple, and the work it takes to make sure to be constantly tending and stoking the flames of that fire.
Yeah, just so you know, you're not alone there. I read an article that said that there were 80% of married couples do not consummate on their wedding night. They're too exhausted.
Yeah, we were way too exhausted. And I also, you know, for me personally, I know for me, and this is not for everybody, but I know for me, like, romance is a big way for me, like, that would be my on-ramp to keep it going. But for Scott, you know, I'm not going to generalize this to all men, but there's definitely, you know, there's not an inch of my body that he doesn't know or hasn't seen before. And so for me to keep the excitement and the passion and the novelty of sex alive and really present for us, I take on as my job. You know, I've read growing up in university the whole world of, like, you know, the vision of men wanting to, you know, ideally be with multiple partners. All that, I don't know what it did in my mind, but I have this thought that you know, we have this saying, it doesn't matter where you get your appetite from, as long as you come home for dinner. Or what Scott likes to say is, you can totally look at the menu as long as you don't order anything. And so one of the things that I've taken on, and I don't even know if he knows this, so it's actually good that he's not here, is I don't know how to be a new person when we're together in bed. But I have lots of girlfriends who do that very, very different, do the whole bedroom, romance, sexy time very differently than me. So I'll actually ask them, like, what do you do in the bedroom? Because they're going to do things or make noises, or one lady's like, yeah, I act like a cat. It never even occurred to me to act like a cat. And so in regards to, like, making sure to stoke the fire pre-bedroom time, I will start, like, texting. Like, one day I'll text meow, and I'm like, it's weird for me, and he's like, what was that about? I'm like, oh, nothing. And then, like, I'll try to, like, bring, like, cat-like energy and I'm like literally interviewing her, like, okay, so what do you do? And she's like, yeah, I just, I lick their arms and their legs like I'm a cat, like from their ankles to their knees. And I'm like, what? That is not what I do, but I will try it, so that he has a sense of being with a totally different woman, and I have a sense of I get to try on being someone different. We're still safe. We still love each other. I know we're committed to each other, but I get to try being someone else. And he's also reacts differently because I'm doing all these weird new things, and he's also feeling like he's with someone else, and so that's kind of something.
Slice of life, right?
Totally. So that's one of the things that I know I take on, to keep that sexy time really, really rich and diverse. And it's sometimes hilarious because there'll be times when I try something and we both look at each other like, okay, that just doesn't work.
Those breakout in laughter moments. It reminds me that you're talking about the cat. We had Susan Bratton from Personal Life Media and her husband Tim on. They were How to Keep the Sex Dirty during, and one of her phrases, the catchphrases that she says all the time is, "What does Kitty want?" Because
nice.
his happy wife, happy life. So and his line was, if your woman's not turned on, why bother? It's like, awesome. So they always start with, what would Kitty like? And that could be a conversation that you have just when you're going for a walk or you're driving in the car. It doesn't have to be part of the seduction. And that's part of what Raj and I have been trying to work with other couples and help them do, and ourselves as well, is just to make talking about it such a regular common thing. Like, what do you think of that movie last night? Or, hey, do you like that restaurant? Should we go back to it? And, hey, what about, sex? What would have made that even better? And that just have an easy, comfortable thing to talk about.
Yeah, it's so great. I remember when we first got married, and even before, I was talking to Scott, and I'm thinking, we have a car, and usually every certain amount of clicks, you take the car in for an oil change, because you want to make sure that the engine is running optimally, that the car is really working to the real extent that it should be working in its highest degree. And so we were like, if a car needs to get an oil change or a checkup, why wouldn't a relationship need to go in for regular sort of service? And so once a month, which is usually every 4 weeks on a Sunday, we call it our check-in day, where it's a day that we have designed and designate to talking about the relationship, looking at the past month, what's working, what wasn't working so great, what would we love to include or take out, and also to really touch base on what happened the last month to change. The communication being really present in a relationship, I think, is critical and crucial, and I actually schedule it in like I would schedule in having to get my oil changed in my car or a doctor's appointment, because it really is the most important relationship and the most important factor in my life, because I know if I'm not in a good space with my husband, my productivity goes down, the way in which I can do any of my business is severely impacted, and so I don't want the engine of our love to be in any way disrupted. So I totally 100% think that's a great idea, and it's something that we employ and has been the source of a lot of the reasons why we can actually talk about not just sex, but all the other areas, but even sex when it can be kind of taboo or embarrassing or, uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
What did you call that again, Sacha, when you...
We called it like our monthly, it's like our oil checks, we call it our check-in time, or like our check-in time for transformation, or it's like literally like the check oil light comes on. I love it. We have it come up in our phone, like check-in time, but it's for the relationship.
Raj and I call it, we do it once every, every month? Yeah, once a month. It's called the Sundress Sunday Reset Summit.
Nice.
Right? And we actually have an agenda we go through each time and, look at our calendar, because we often, one of our challenges is how I like to be really social. I'm an extrovert. He's an introvert more, so he likes to be social, but he needs a lot more downtime. So we'll go through the calendar and we'll check out all these things. And you say, what does your managing your calendar have to do with your sex life? And it has a lot to do with it, because that's one of our most common arguments is, that we're either going out too much or having too many house guests, or for me, not having enough or doing enough. And if we don't resolve those, then there's not going to be much to talk about with sex life anyways.
Yeah. Early on in our relationship, Scott and I did a bunch of Tantra courses, and one of the things that we really took away from that is, if you had a specialist appointment with a doctor, you would never miss it. It would be really of critical importance, and to relate to those kinds of meetings, to actually schedule things into your calendar and to relate that to them like you're having a specialist appointment. It's that important, and Yeah.
And Sacha, you and I, we've spoken before, calling this a game worth playing. We know that it's not easy, and this really isn't about being perfect. It's about experimenting and brainstorming and researching. And as you said, I love the tip. Ask your girlfriends. One of my, quotes is, having a passionate sex life. Raj, did you put that? Can you put that up on the screen? Having a passionate sex life, starts with inspired imperfect action.
Yes.
It's not about it being, showing up perfectly. It's about you caring and showing some intention. Because I say all the time, just a little bit of intention, attention, and action consistent over time can really work wonders. It doesn't take me but a second to reach over and grab Rash's thumb as I walk by. This is not a Herculean effort. What's a Herculean effort is never, tending and nurturing your relationship and getting proactive about it. And then, when the problems come up, then what did someone call it? You today, Sacha, when we were texting, you called it pushing water uphill. It's just exhausting and pointless.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing what the two things of initiating inertia and a little intention and attention goes a long way. It's amazing what those two things can do to your relationship, for your relationship.
Absolutely. And even if it flops, if there's things that happen and they don't work out, the mere fact that he is trying or that he made the effort, it may not be the thing that gets a sexual energy motor running, but my love rush for him will be there, which is, definitely the baseline for us, where a lot of our sexual energy comes from, that constant foundation of love.
I just want to let any viewers know that the Join the Hangout button is now live. If it's not working, hit the refresh button on your browser, and or shoot us a comment in the comments on our episode page that you're watching this video on right now.
Okay, and so let's wrap it up with Initiate Inertia, and just then, Sacha, get fresh to your ideas. I know we're sprinkling them all in there, but one of the things that we like to do every time we talk about a tip or a tool or a distinction is to bring in what we call the action option. And we'll even, tell people your action option, should you choose to accept it. Again, it's this game. Will you share the screen?
That's a little
make it work.
Mission Impossible.
Yeah, but we'll call it Mission Possible, right? Not Mission Impossible. Mission Possible. And so in this case with Initiate Inertia, just for some specific tangible steps of what you can do. So first, look in and ask yourself what is at rest in your sexual relationship. What is not moving that you want to get moving and bring some energy to. Could be something big, something small, something you're planning in advance, something you're going to do immediately. Then go ahead and write down 3 ideas on how to get started. What is going to have you put that into motion? Just start brainstorming. Then you can write down 3 ideas about what might be a potential pitfall, because often it's, we get all these great ideas and we put things in place, but if you just pay attention to what are the pitfalls that that you can kind of guess are coming, how can you avoid that self-sabotage, so to speak, then removing that hurdle can actually make your efforts so much easier that it doesn't take a lot of effort at all. You want me to finish? You want to do the others? I'm practicing not being speaking all the time. That he can get a word in edgewise is the name of that one.
You can go ahead. It's great because I'm also managing.
Yeah, I know. Today you're managing more, honey. I know. Yeah, we get used to having someone manage all the tech for us, and then you have to jump in and do it yourself. But so thank you for doing that today. I'm imagining a little cape on you. Okay, well, the third thing that you want to write down is 3 ideas on how to keep what you want in motion to stay in motion over time, because things disappear, you forget, you literally go from the kitchen into your bedroom to get something and you've forgotten what you went to get. So something, you know, challenging like keeping the passion alive, you know, can take a little bit more attention. So what are you going to do that's both going to avoid those pitfalls and going to put some practices in motion to make sure that things stay over time, you know, like that habit of your monthly habit you were talking about, Sacha. And then pick one idea. Now, you can pick a couple, but it's best to start small. You know, you want to make sure that you have some success. So pick one idea that you can put in place in the next hour. Then you might pick one that you can put in the next 24 hours, and then one in the next week, so that you're taking these baby steps, remembering that a little bit of intention, attention, and action will make a huge difference over time. And then the last two here, you know, I'm all about scheduling reminders. You know, all day long my reminders are coming up, and some of them are for calls that I have. A lot of them are for reminding me what I love about my husband, our declaration for who we are as a couple, all sorts of things. So once you have your ideas, schedule reminders as if it's the most important call or meeting of your life, or, you know, it's picking up, you know, your favorite person from the airport, whatever it may be. Have it be important enough. You know, I say if it's not in my calendar, it doesn't exist, because it's just most likely not going to happen if there's not some kind of a reminder. We're doing too many things and life's moving too fast. And then finally, just take action. As we said, you know, initiate inertia, just do something, anything, experiment, just playful out. And if you need to take baby steps, take baby steps. Anticipate that you're going to fall down. It's not like Raj and I just went through 6 or 7 months with having this one fight we used to have, this dynamic, and it didn't happen. And then it happened a few days ago. I was like, oh no, it's not about perfect. It's about being progress. And now we can go, oh, you know how great those last 7 months were without that argument? Let's go back to how we were being there.
That was much better. Let's try it.
That was much better. Let's go back to that practice. So again, having a playful, peaceful, passionate sex life is going to start with imperfect, inspired action. So just initiate inertia. So Sacha, thanks for your patience through all those exercises, or going through the steps of those exercises.
And just to let you know, we're going to post those action options steps in the comments window on this episode page, so you can have those at your easy to reference. And also you can check out our blog article on initiating inertia on our website, relationshipfunandgames.com, under the Sex Dirty blog section.
Yes, and actually the action options are there as well, but we'll get those.
I love that there's a Sex Dirty option. I just love that you can say that and it's true. The
Right?
Sex Dirty option. Click on that one.
Choose. You know, choose. Fights dirty or sex dirty. You know. So Sacha, what is it? We've gotten a lot of ideas from you. We're just, you know, riffing and chatting. But what are some of your favorites for, you know, even before the seduction, but just in the space in between, and how you relate to your husband? What do you do that keeps that playful, peaceful, and passionate relationship going?
So there's definitely, like, and Raj mentioned a bunch of them in the beginning, like things like, you know, lots of physical touch. Learning his love language is a big one, and so we're both, you know, physical touch isn't necessarily mine, but it's very important to him. So making sure to come by and constantly be touching him. The other thing I do is it's easy for, and I'll speak for myself, to get immune to his body, because I've seen it for 5 years in every situation, you know, every situation. And so it's easy. Yeah. And so it's easy to go, oh yeah, that's just his body. But to constantly be looking at, you know, and he works out, and to be constantly going, oh, I love the curve, and even in a non-sexual, getting into the shower, getting out, or he just walking from the bedroom with no clothes on, like, you know, being able to reach out and want to grab his arm, or feel the hair on his chest, or go, man, I love how your ass looks right now. Like, I just love that. Every night before we go to bed, even if we're not having any sort of, like, sexual energy, I always go to sleep with my hand down his pants, cupping his ass. So I'm, like, always present to, like, touching parts that are, like, you know, normally reserved for sexy time, or, like, sexual energy time, to be touching those parts even when it's a non-sexual energy, so that they're getting attention too. Like, I want his ass and his cock to be known and seen and heard and welcomed into this space. So, you know, those kinds of things. And it doesn't necessarily ever really lead to anything other than me going, I acknowledge you, and I love your arm, and your ass looks great right now.
Well, hopefully not ever, never, but.
Well, yeah, not never, but
I know you didn't say that. I was just teasing you. But I so know what you mean with the handle, because Raj and I'll say, grab my handle. And what that is if we're spooning and from behind, so he'll reach one arm over and cup my breast with his hand.
The handle, I love it.
Just go to sleep, curled up like that. So touch is a big one, even if you're not initiating sex, but just so that, and that famous study of, when they were doing research before there was ethics committees and whatnot, and the babies that were fed and taken care of but not touched, and they literally started to die.
Yeah.
So we want to feel touched and loved and seen and important.
Yeah, you really. Sorry, Sacha. Gabby and I, we call ourselves Olympic level cuddlers. And so,
we'll literally sing the anthem. We'll be in bed and go. Dun, 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 dun.
I love it. I love it.
Reverse cuddle, and then we kind of call it out. Okay,
reverse cuddle.
We also have what we call the snuggle snooze.
Oh, nice. I love the names you guys have for things. They should be like on T-shirts.
Well, I was writing today about relationships being work and perceived as being work. And yes, it takes effort, but it doesn't have to be perceived as work.
Yes.
I've been saying to Raj recently, let's play peace.
Yeah.
A piece for this season of 8 episodes. The last season was the season of play, and next season will be the season of passion. But so I've been saying to him, let's play peace. These games of really being conscious about what those patterns are, of what keeps us from being intimate, what are the things that get in the way, and then what are the things that actually make it awesome and hot. In fact, at one point we made a list of our top 10 turn-ons and turn-offs, and went through those with each other. There's also a cool resource, Sacha and the viewers, listeners here, called Mojo Upgrade. MOJO Upgrade. Can you put that in the comments, honey? And you don't have to log in if you don't want, but if you log in, you and your partner both take this assessment, and there's every kind of sex act you can think of, and you mark which ones you're interested in, and then it sends you an email with only the ones that you both said. So
nice.
If you said that you want to do this crazy thing and they didn't say it, they won't know that you said it either. But, for Raj and I, we didn't necessarily put our emails in, but it gave us we were fine just talking about it. We're like, which one of these on this list are you up for? It was like, really? And then some of them, we were both like, wow, that made it on the list? You just never know. Different strokes for different folks. But it was a great way just to open up a conversation, not even around seduction, but just beforehand of like, hey, what are your top turn-ons? What are your top turn-offs?
And again, it's Mojo.
Mojo Upgrade. MOJO Upgrade.com. Yeah.
Just posted that.
That's awesome.
Thanks, honey. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's a great resource. I'm going to be going home and be like, Scott, we need to take this test.
Yeah, right? Right? Because in fact, Raj and I, we have this we actually usually do after. We call this usually is Sex Dirty after is the romp recap. But after pulls into before. And, in the romp recap, when within 24 hours after having sex, we go through and have a casual conversation. We could be walking to the beach or going out to dinner, and we'll score ourselves together in how well we thought we did in intimacy, sexiness, and technique.
We'll actually do one of those.
Yes. We were last night. It's worth getting to bed early sometime. I'm a night owl and he gets up earlier than I do, so that's always the big challenge is, do I go to bed when he goes to bed? So there's another practice for before is, really look at what's working and what are the structures. If me staying up till 2 and him going to bed at 11:30 wasn't really conducive to us having a lot of good sexy time.
And that's another example of initiating inertia, just shifting your patterns and habits. We get so into one way of spending our time, and for example, if you like to watch a show in the evening to relax, and then that turns into 2 or 3 shows, and then one of you goes to bed and the other one doesn't go to bed at the same time, etc. You can kind of wear in these patterns that
totally
all this inertia behind them, and you got to shift it. So like last night, Gabby and I, like she said, went to bed at 11:30, together. And it took a lot of initial pushing to get that shift to happen. But once it did happen, we had this really awesome, intimate time together that I was like so glad we did that. And that's what made me think about getting off the couch.
I'm like 4. I don't like to go to bed. Make it worth it, you know. In fact, he said, I was doing a little late work last night, and he came over. He said, let me show you something. And he just took my hand and brought me to the bedroom and showed me that he had lit some candles and just that he had made it nice for me. And it was his way of saying, I'm creating a safe, relaxing space for you, and I'm inviting you to be in this space with me. It was really, really lovely.
Yeah, you can read more about that that topic in Sex Dirty as it starts, where you're creating ambiance and creating safety and setting the stage for having sexy time. So
yeah, that's part of the how to keep the sex dirty as it starts, as the seduction's happening, and kind of holding that container. But I was just going back to the romp recap, because I was bringing it up because when Raj and I were doing the romp recap, you know, if you get 10s across the board, we call that a triple-double in basketball. You know, that's the term from basketball. If you get, you know, double digits on assists, points, and rebounds, I think it is. I'm not a big sports fan, but I call it a triple-double. Best ever sexy time. And Raj and I started asking ourselves, okay, so, you know, your brother-in-law is Evan Pagan, and he taught us that the success is an emergent property. You can't create success. You can only create the conditions for success. Yes. And we like to apply business practices to our relationship and relationship practices to business. And we applied that one, that you can't create best ever sexy time. You can create the conditions for triple-double best ever sexy time. Yes. So we actually started to make a list, this is the before, of what are the conditions for best ever sexy time. You know, we live in a community house with lots of people, so, you know, do we have space alone? You know, do I have something on my mind that I'm worried about, a deadline or something, that there's just something he could tell me it's going to be okay? You know, it doesn't even have to be a physical perimeter of lighting the candles or whatever, but just energetically, are you doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in advance, make your list of what are your conditions for best ever sex, because we've discovered it doesn't just happen by itself. Like, some of the conditions are for a best ever, and we do have a commitment to every 90 days to have the best ever sex we've ever had, so that we're not like the hot coal cooling. And to do that, we realize you need a good amount of time. You know, quickies are usually, they're great, but they're usually not best evers. You know, could be, but not typical. You know, that we have the perimeter is secured emotionally, physically. What else is present, honey? I'm blanking on my triple-double conditions.
Triple-double conditions.
I'm actually blushing. I feel myself actually getting hot. I'll turn it back over to you, Sacha.
And just so if anyone has joined us on the show and would like to ask a question, please feel free to type it into the comments window on the side of the Google Hangout.
Yeah, it's all about getting personal and proactive in your relationship. So if there's, you know, a challenge you're facing, we'd love to hear from you, because, you know, what I found is that what most couples are dealing with the same kind of issues, not at the same time or the same degrees, and not all of them. And certainly, you know, I feel for the couples that are really having the serious issues, and I make no qualms about recommending people see therapists, you know, if someone's at the verge of divorce. But really what we're talking about is just don't let it get boring and dull, and, you know, don't let yourself get to the point where you're having fantasies about divorce. You know, have fantasies about how good it can be. And, you know, like we said, you know, 10 years have been together, and every 90 days we're having the best sex we've ever had. That doesn't happen on its own.
It's great.
It does for some people, but it doesn't for us.
One of the things I'm you know, recalling as you're speaking, Gabby, in regards to, like, before, you know, I have this belief that if I'm walking down the street and I happen to think about, you know, a friend of mine and it makes me smile, I have it like that thought belongs to that person, so I'll make sure and text them right away or reach out and say, hey, thanks for visiting my mind today. Like, you totally brought a smile to my face, because that's a gift. Like, their existence in my life was a gift to me. And so I do the same thing, but I apply it with Scott, where if I'm ever, like, watching a show, or there's a moment in the movie, or there's some guy or some girl and something's happening that's got a lot of sexual energy, and I feel a spark of arousal or horniness, It could be in the middle of the afternoon because we have different schedules. I footnote, I'm like, I'm going to take that energy and I'm going to feel it, and then I want to footnote that to my husband. And so I'll be like, I'll just text him randomly. It'll be like, I'm really effing horny right now. Or I wish you were home so we could get it on. Because then the sexy time or sexual energy isn't only, like you were saying earlier, Raj, just for right before bed in this like normal, regular pattern, that energy and me being aroused. And also reminding him and reminding myself that I'm a sexual, sensual being as a woman. And that I do have moments of arousal, and I want to make sure and mark those moments in some way, whether it's reaching out to him and letting him know, or, you know, sometimes making it like a really more sex-explicit text of like what I wish he was here that I would want to do with him right now. In the middle of his meeting with a client, I want him to see that. And then, you know, just to make sure and keep it really at, you know, the energy high, if I know he's away for the weekend and he's busy doing things with men or workshops, we're married for 2 years, been together for 5. I still text him pictures of me, you know, so like sexual pictures, so he gets to remember that he has a very interested and ready wife when he comes home. I'm sorry.
Hey there. Yeah, I like to say, you know, you got to play to win.
Absolutely.
You know, not play to win. I get, oh, that's great, but just you got to play. Just get out there, or just, you know, get active. You know, as we were saying before, initiate inertia. You know, I can count probably 6 or 7 specific tips and strategies that we've been talking about tonight. So I hope those of you out there, you know, again, make it personal. Pick one that for you. And even if it's something like mastering mini seductions, you say, yeah, I'm going to do that. Right now, just take the action and just write down, or even if you don't have a pencil, text it in your phone to yourself, or put it in your calendar as a reminder to come up, you know, once a week this week. You know, I'm mastering mini seductions, and then give your partner that love. Or I'm initiating inertia, or I'm going to call my, you know, friends and ask them, you know, what are you doing, and what you know, what do you do beforehand? To spice it up.
We really do, for some weird reason, as we said before on our other shows, expect our relationships just to work like that image that we have in our head, the dream of like, oh, it should be this way, you know, just magically be that way without any effort, you know. And do you know many couples, Sacha, that it just magically works that way?
I've yet to find the couple where both parties are telepathic, so they know exactly what the other person wants when they want it, like perfectly. So no, not yet.
Yeah. So you know, as Gabby's talking about these reminders and these tips, it's really to really be proactive about your relationship, and it's really where this whole area of work of before, with the Fights Clean and the Sex Dirty, can lead to things being the way that you want. You know, we don't expect other things in our life just to magically work. So why should our relationships work without some work? And as Gabby said, that work can be play. And if you bring this playful work to your relationship, you really can have it the way that you want it.
Well, you know, when I used to teach at the college level, we used to look at motivation, and you know, people are motivated by pain more than pleasure. But if you can look at both what are your pain points in your relationship and what's the pleasure of what you want to be leaning towards, you know, find that motivation of like what's worth it. Because Raj and I would like to say wonderful's worth it, but as he says, it takes something. It's not necessarily easy. But it doesn't have to be hard. As I said before, it doesn't have to be work. Let's play peace and play passion and play and bring all 3 of those until you have a P3 relationship. We've got about 4 minutes, so I just want to say something about next week's show. Great. Anything you or Sacha want to say about keeping the sex dirty beforehand before we shift to next week?
Well, the only thing that came to my mind is that if people are motivated by pain, then just start spanking each other in the bedroom, and then.
Well, when I say motivated by pain, it's like you're more likely to pull your hand out of the fire than to pick a pretty flower. But yeah.
I totally know what you're talking about.
And, you know, in general, just spend some time together. You know, life is so busy, but if you don't invest that time up front,
totally.
You're going to demand your time later on. In fact, right now, it just came up on my calendar, an alarm, and it says, I love my life sunset walk. And Raj and I try to do that 4 days a week so that it's 12 minutes to the beach and back. 12 minutes there, 12 minutes back. So it takes us about a half an hour. But to be by the ocean, to hold hands, to go for a short walk, even a few days a week, just it actually does lead to a much better sex life. A walk on the beach will get you laid.
Yes.
Or a walk if you don't have a beach nearby.
One of the things I just want to show before we talk about next week's show is just point to some of the things on the episode page here. Our ebook, which talks
a picture of us in the dark. So I'm sorry for laughing, but it's gotten dark. It's getting dark earlier here. We didn't know. Last episode we didn't need light.
Yeah. So you can check out our ebook here, and all of these tips, Fights Clean, Sex Dirty, before, as it starts, during, and after, are covered in this awesome ebook. And there's action options for each of the different phases. And there's it's just awesome. Lots of fun in that ebook.
And awesome, but really easy to go through, to scan. And Sacha's in there as well. A fun picture of her and her husband. In fact, they were. She wore wings in her wedding. I just love that. But yeah, really easy to read and get a good summary and really find, quick reference of exactly where your challenges are. Fights Clean, Sex Dirty, before, as it starts, during, and after, so that you can get to just the great information that you need the most.
Awesome. You want to talk about next week's show, Gabby, before we close?
Yes, so next week the topic will be how to keep the fights clean as it starts. So just as you're starting to feel that tension rise and things are getting a little sticky and maybe you're snapping at each other a little bit, but just before the full-out fight, but as it's starting and on-ramping, how can you unhook and, stop yourself from, pull yourself out of the quicksand, so to speak, before you really do get caught up in it. Yeah. And we're going to have some dear friends of ours, our friends Katie Cleary and Mark Broomer, otherwise known as Popey, and we just, they're one of our favorite couples. They're one of those couples that literally when they walk down the street you notice them and go, wow, who are they? Because they're so aligned and so in sync that you can feel it and see it. So looking forward to having them join us as well.
Yeah, the what Gabby said about pulling yourself out before you get in too deep, it's way easier to stop a fight before it gets full-blown than it is to recover after.
It's just like inertia. Things in motion tend to stay in motion. Things at rest tend to stay at rest. So once you get going, it takes a lot to stop it. So let's not go there. Come next week, and we'll talk about all those great ideas. But Sacha, thank you for being here. I'm so sorry about the confusion with Scott. We'll have to have you back, excuse me, next season so we can get both of you.
Yeah, we missed you, Scott. We'll get you on another episode for sure.
Thanks so much,
love,
guys.
And anything you want to say? Where can people find out more about your work and what you do with women, and even Scott with his work with men?
If you're interested in finding out what I do, I'm a feminine leadership expert. You can check me out at sachalalla.com. And Scott's all about men creating epic love in their relationships, and you can find him at mensrelationshipcoaching.com.
Awesome.
And these two are such phenomenal people and phenomenal coaches. We've been around the block in terms of personal development work, and every time I interact with either Scott or Sacha, my life is altered in an awesomely positive way. So check their work out.
Yes, absolutely. Love you so much, Sacha. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a blast.
Great. We'll see you next season. This season of Passion. We'll bring you and Scott back during one of the Sex Dirty ones.
Have a great night, everybody, and we'll see you next week, 5:30 Pacific time on Wednesday, to talk about how to keep the sex dirty.
Nope, Fights Clean.
Fights Clean. We're back to Fights Clean.
Yeah, he keeps wanting to talk about the sex dirty, but this one's Fights Clean.
Fights Clean
as it starts.
Thanks. Have a great night.